Hey, what's up, guys? Tougie here, back again. Finally, it has been a while since I've been able to talk some hockey. It's been about a week, really, since the draft. So we're going to get right down to business today. I don't even have time to tell you that this video is sponsored by SeatGeek. I don't have the time to explain just how great of an app it is where they color code everything to tell you how good of a deal you're getting for sporting events and concerts and all of that. I don't even have time to tell you that you can use code Tougie at checkout to get $20 off your first ticket purchase. I don't have time to tell you that. What I do have time to tell you is my opinion on everything that's happened in the NHL since the draft. Like I mentioned, it's been a while since I've been able to talk about this stuff. Post-draft, I had a very important weekend to attend to, where I also got sunburnt to a crisp, at least on the back of my neck, to the point where I got about 6 hours of sleep over the course of 3.5, 4 days. So it's been a weird couple of days. I go into a bit more detail about it on the most recent Sea Cattle episode, so check that out. That said, all that, nonsense aside, let's talk some hockey, because my God, there is so much. I thought I was doing so well heading into the draft, keeping up with everything. The first thing I wanted to talk about, the list of players here. Nikolai Kulemin, Johanna, V2, Slapishev, Pakarainen, Antipin, Padan, all going over to the KHL. Yakupov and David Desharnais as well. I don't really have a major opinion on any of them. I was surprised to see the Oilers lose the trio of V2, Slapishev, and Pakarainen. I'm not really surprised, though. Like, David Desharnais, the rumors were out there 3 months ago. And for Nail Yakupov, it's not really surprising. It sucks. I'd say that it sucks. It does. To see another, a former number one overall pick just not be able to get it done. I wonder if he'll come back in a few years and give it another shot. The question is going to remain for the rest of his life, really, what would have happened if he went somewhere else? Of course, it's not a secret as far as that draft class goes. Edmonton wanted Ryan Murray, and ownership said, no, you will take Nail Yakupov. The rest is history. I wish him luck over in the KHL. I do want to start with trades, though, however. I suppose I should have started over on this tab. This PC is just chugging along, the little engine that almost couldn't. The first trade I really should talk about, Connor Sheary and Matt Hunwick, the cap dump by the Pittsburgh Penguins, sending them to the Buffalo Sabres. I love this deal for Buffalo. I mean, this is a very NHL 18-like deal, where Pittsburgh has two guys, and it's like, cap dump. This is the type of trade that people would call unrealistic. But it's a great move for Pittsburgh, and obviously we kind of know now, and we'll talk about what they've done over the past week or so since this has happened, if not a little bit longer. And for Buffalo, I mean, the addition of Rasmus Dahlin, we have another trade to talk about, we have some signings to talk about, but I really like this deal for them. Schrader and Berube, the Steve Mason dump, obviously for Montreal, it's not that big of a deal. Joel Armia is a good pickup for them. The draft picks, who the hell knows. Simon Bork for Winnipeg, I mean, we know Steve Mason was bought out. So really what this comes down to is it's a W until we see what Simon Bork becomes. I don't see how you could see this any other way as a W for the Montreal Canadiens, because, of course, the Winnipeg Jets didn't re-sign Paul Stastny. So, good deal there for Montreal. Kerdiles and Chase DeLeo was a minor swap. And then we get to the other Buffalo deal to talk about. That being them trading Ryan O'Reilly to the St. Louis Blues for Tage Thompson, Patrick Berglund, Vladimir Sobotka, a first and a second. I believe that second's conditional. I might be wrong on that. We'll just consider it a second for now. Of course, I reacted to this trade on Twitter. My thoughts are still kind of the same. It's a great haul for Buffalo. I like the return. I like Tage Thompson. Getting roster players in Berglund and Sobotka. Not sure if you'll be able to flip them. And the draft picks as well, time will tell. But obviously, in theory, right now, it's looking pretty good. No real point to have Ryan O'Reilly on your team. Are you going to be able to fix things in the next 2 to 3 seasons as to where it makes it worth having Ryan O'Reilly? Would it not be better to get something for him? Clearly, they agreed. So, for the Buffalo Sabres, a great move. You didn't really need Ryan O'Reilly to begin with. And for the St. Louis Blues, to make up for the fact, of course, that you did not bring back Paul Stastny after trading him at the trade deadline last season, you factor in, of course, the signing of Tyler Bozak as well. They're looking better. I don't think anyone really expected them to miss the playoffs last year, so this gets them right back in the hunt. I would expect them, I mean, at the very least, the expectation is playoffs. Whether or not they make it, time will tell, but I do like the move for both teams. As far as a winner, right? Now, I was all right with declaring a winner in the Montreal-Winnipeg trade. Who knows at this point? Does Ryan O'Reilly accomplish anything more in St. Louis than he would have in Buffalo? We don't know. Really, a lot of that depends on Jake Allen. What does Tage Thompson do with the new-look team? Are they able to flip Berglund and Sobotka? What do those draft picks become? A lot of question marks right now. But I do like the trade for both teams. And then the last trade, the most recent trade, Eamon McAdam to Toronto in exchange for Matt Martin. It deserves its own video just to talk about what's happened to the New York Islanders, although everybody's covered that so far. Every channel, every media outlets. It's a strange time right now for the New York Islanders for numerous reasons. I don't hate the trade. They bring back Matt Martin. He's a familiar face. Probably better than just having another depth goaltender, which still makes me think, Toronto's got to be trading Curtis McElhinney, right? How could they not? They re-signed Pickard. I can't really help but think that Curtis McElhinney is going to be on his way out one way or another. But the goalie market, of course, isn't that strong. So kind of an interesting deal there. It might be one of the Islanders' few W's in the past couple of days. Getting to the signings, I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to go individually, and I'm glad that Cap Friendly has the ability to do this. For the Anaheim Ducks, they were pretty quiet on July 1st up until the end of the day, signing Schenn, Rodin, Jared Coro, Ben Street, Carter Rowney, and Brian Gibbons. No major signings, but I do like what they did. Luke Schenn's a very low-risk signing. Rodin's coming back over from overseas. Coro as a backup goalie's fine. They let go of somebody, and I don't remember his name, but it's fine. And then guys like Rowney and Gibbons are good for the bottom six. So no major changes, but for Anaheim, when the word after their loss in the postseason was, we need to change it, we need to change things up, we need to get faster. Brian Gibbons is a good skater, but does this list of players right here, does that fit the we're going faster mold? Not really. So I'm intrigued to see if the Ducks are done or what they really have up their sleeve. Is the idea of getting faster, does that just mean, giving someone like Sam Steele a chance instead of sending him down to double A? Jesus, I play way too much MLB, and I shouldn't have recorded a Blue Jays episode before this. Is that the better idea to call up a Sam Steele instead of sending him down to the AHL? So, a decent point. It was okay for Anaheim. There's not much to say. Arizona, on the other hand, they did okay. Signing Grabner, admittedly, for the 3.35 cap hit, that might have been a little bit too much than I was willing to see a team like the Bruins pay for, but it's a low-risk signing for him. I still think the Arizona Coyotes are one of the more interesting teams to watch right now. Last season, everyone thought, hey, they might be able to make the playoffs, and then, of course, they were abysmal at the start. Latter half of the season, they were able to recover and really start getting the game going. What version of the Arizona Coyotes are we going to see at the start of this next season? Of course, you also have Galchenyuk. The Ekman-Larsson signing is the biggest news of this offseason. Getting him locked up to that 8-year deal is tremendous for them. The biggest news, aside from them, of course, bringing back the alternate jersey. Re-signing Hjalmarsson, a good move. I agree with those who say that the Blackhawks got rid of the wrong defenseman. They should have gotten rid of Seabrook over Hjalmarsson. Mermis, of course, AHL-level signing. And bringing back Brad Richardson's okay. So, I like what the Arizona Coyotes are doing. Whether or not it pans out, though, who knows? I'm excited to see how it works out for them, though. I think they're going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch moving forward. I was going to do an individual video on the Bruins. I'm not going to at this point because I don't have a whole hell of a lot to say. And that's going to be the theme with a lot of this, is it's up in the air, in my opinion. They signed Axel Anderson, who they drafted, this past June, technically now, a couple of weeks ago, so whatever. Chris Wagner. Chris Wagner is, in a way, replacing guys like Schaller and Austin Czarnik going out. So I'm good with the Wagner and the Nordstrom signings. You need players to compete for bottom six spots. I'm good for it. Again, knowing that guys like Schaller, Riley Nash, Austin Czarnik were on their way out, I'm not surprised to see players of that caliber come in. But then we get to one of the more interesting deals, I think, that has been signed in general, that being John Moore. The cap hit's all right. 275 is not bad. 5 years. 5 years for John Moore. And that helps create just a little bit of a logjam for the Bruins defense, which of course has led to a lot of rumors as to whether or not they're going to be looking to move anybody. Would like a Carlo or a Krug be on the move? Names I've heard thrown around. I mean, whether it be Jeff Skinner, Wayne Simmons, Panarin, because people are dreamers, don't you know? I don't know. I am, again, obviously for more reasons than just, I think it'll be entertaining. I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with the Boston Bruins. Whether or not a defenseman is moved. If they don't move a defenseman, they have a ton of depth there, but then somebody like an Adam McQuaid, a Matt Grzelcyk, a John Moore even, wouldn't be getting regular playing time. Which for the Bruins is a great situation, but for one of those individual players, it's probably not what they're hoping for. So I'm intrigued to see, and I'm going to say the word intrigued a lot because it's intriguing to me, damn it. I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. The McNeil signing is very minor. Yaroslav Halak replacing Anton Khudobin. I mean, I like Dobby, right? Dobby's amazing. He had a great season for the most part last year. Sad to see him go to Dallas. I'm a little bit pessimistic about Yaroslav Halak, but I don't feel like I should be. I feel like I'm wrong for feeling that way just because he does have that pedigree as someone who's been a relatively decent starter. I think over the past 4 seasons, I looked it up, he has like a .915 save percentage, which is okay. It's above league average. You're paying him a little bit more than I'd like to see, but you really didn't have any other options. The second you knew you weren't going to be able to get a deal done with Khudobin, you didn't have an in-house option. You weren't going to pay Carter Hutton the money he was getting by going to Buffalo, which we'll talk about in a second. In-house options like Zane McIntyre, this kind of shows that they don't have faith in Zane McIntyre to be the guy, which makes me wonder how much longer he's going to be around with guys like Daniel Vladar, Jeremy Swayman, and Kyle Kieser coming up behind him. So it made sense. I think I would have preferred them to keep Khudobin, but obviously they couldn't work out a deal, so it is what it is. Golubev is their Paul Postma-esque signing for this offseason, just a little bit of AHL depth. And they also re-signed Anton Bleed, which I'm all right with, although I have a feeling if he doesn't break out this season, it's a 1-year deal, he'll be gone next year, so I'm hoping for big things from him. And Sean Corrali, who there's a little bit of controversy over, just because a lot of Bruins fans think if he's the 3C on this team this year, the third line center, that's a very bad sign for them. I've been extremely impressed with Sean Corrali over the past year or so, really dating back to the postseason matchup against Ottawa. I don't know. I can see the concerns about him being the third line center, but in a way, I'm all right with it. If that's the case, I'm okay with it. If you want to tell me that you're going out and looking at a different center, which I really don't see how you would. I mean, again, the big names, Simmons, Skinner, Panarin, not centers. I don't really want to speculate who they could possibly get because I'd just be pulling names out of the hat. And if David Backes isn't going to play center, which, I mean, on the faceoffs at certain points last season, he was rough. Sean Corrali's one of the better options. So I'm okay with that signing. 3 years, solid cap hit. I'm good with it. For the most part, for the Bruins, I mean, they didn't get John Tavares, of course, which was insanity to think that they were even in the final 6, apparently, or whatever the hell it was over the whole Tavares saga. I'm all right with what they've done. They still have a relatively young core. They still have some prospects coming up, whether it's an Anders Bjork, who should be healthy this year, which is great. I'm intrigued to see who gets a look deep into training camp and deep into the preseason. Guys like Jack Studnicka, is Urho Vakanainen going to be that much closer? I really like where the Bruins team is at right now. And do I expect them to be in the playoffs next year? Absolutely. I think that's anything short of, okay, a little bit worse than what you were last season. Maybe you got a little bit lucky in certain stretches. Anything less, though, than being a top 3 team in the Atlantic is probably viewed as a failure. They have to be a playoff team, and they should be with their current roster. Maybe I could have turned that into its own individual video. The Buffalo Sabres haven't done much, at least in terms of free agent signing, as of course there was the O'Reilly deal. There was picking up the 2 guys from Pittsburgh as well. They signed Brandon Hickey, who was an NCAA guy. They re-signed Scott Wilson. And of course they let go of Robin Leonard and bring in Carter Hutton to be their starter, which, you know what, in fairness, I thought Hutton was over $3 million as I was speaking there, and some people are probably like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't think that we're going to give Hutton the term, of course. Carter Hutton has a chance to be the man in Buffalo. It's between him and Linus Allmark. Scott Wedgwood's going to be the main man in Rochester, I would imagine. So For Buffalo, they're taking a bit of a step back. I think that's good because some Sabres fans I have seen interacted with on Twitter and Twitch really think that they're going to be a playoff team this year, or at least they did before the Ryan O'Reilly trade. They weren't going to be a playoff team even with Ryan O'Reilly. So it's probably good that they've made the moves that they've made. They're going to be one of the weaker teams in the NHL, and that's fine. Whether or not, Rasmus Dahlin isn't Connor McDavid. I'm not exactly afraid to go out on that limb where he is not single-handedly going to drag a carcass of a team to the playoffs. Now, you're disrespecting Cam Talbot. You're right, I am. But you get the point. Dahlin and Hutton do not equal McDavid and Talbot. Sabres weren't making it anywhere near the playoffs, and that's fine. Obviously, the pain and the misery of having to see the team kind of rebuild and retool again sucks. But you're on the right track with some of the moves that they've made, and of course, being able to draft Rasmus Dahlin. So for the Sabres, keep doing what you're doing. Just don't make one major mistake and start handing out contracts like the Matt Molson deal, and you might be okay. For the Calgary Flames, obviously they made their big move with the Dougie Hamilton trade, which I have talked about in a previous episode of Tougie's Take. The signings that they made, I would like them. If I'm a fan of the Calgary Flames, I like what the team's looking like. Yes, you traded Dougie Hamilton, and it's looking a little bit rough, but the depth that they have brought in, particularly at center with Tyler Gravach, whose name I'm probably butchering, Derek Ryan, which he's getting paid a bit, maybe a little bit more than I would have expected, but I still like them adding Derek Ryan, Alan Quine, Austin Czarnik, Buddy Robinson, and then the big signing came on the second, James Neal. I know some people are worried about the cap hit, and perhaps rightfully so. But I don't know. The Flames should have been a playoff team last year. They underperformed. The majority of that core is still there. There are some new additions. Like I said, I like the addition of James Neal. I like the amount of bottom six depth that they have. Derek Ryan as their 3C should be great. I like Calgary's chances heading into the season next year. And I don't know. Austin Czarnik. He wasn't going to get a chance in Boston. I hope he does well out in Calgary. The Carolina Hurricanes, of course, the other part of that major trade. Only 4 signings so far. Signing Andrei Svechnikov, which is not a shock. Peter Mrazek, though. Peter Mrazek. Now, who would you rather have? Mrazek, Hutton, or Robin Lehner? That was my thought. When I saw that they signed Mrazek, and Lehner was still on the market, I was a little bit surprised. I don't know. I still think that the upside for both, really all 3 of those goaltenders are quite high. I don't know. It's another very interesting situation to see what's going to happen. But if I'm the Hurricanes, maybe it was the better option just so that you're not throwing a ton of money towards Robin Lehner as well, which could backfire. We've seen them sign Cam Ward time and time again, and we've also seen how the Darling deal has worked out. So maybe I don't blame them for going for the cheaper option, who still has a bit of an upside in Mrazek. When Mrazek's on his game, he's a pretty damn good goaltender. It's just that inconsistency, which I don't have to tell anybody about if you're familiar with Mrazek. Dan Renew, former UMaine guy, signs with Carolina as well, another former Red Wing. And then the big signing for them, Calvin DeHaan, which opens up options if you wanted to move a Justin Falk, which has continued to be the rumor. With DeHaan, I was a little bit surprised it took until the 3rd to work out a deal, but that Carolina defense on paper is ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. And I just can't help but wonder. It's like, what if you hold on to Justin Falk? If you move him, what do you get for him? Carolina is another fun team to watch. That defense, if Mrazek and Darling, you kind of don't have an excuse. The defense in front of you is probably one of the better defenses in the league on paper, top 10 at least. Some might argue top 5. If they can just get adequate goaltending, they're a playoff team. They were close last year. I could see them doing it this year as well. There aren't too many teams, much like last season, there aren't too many teams where you look at them and say, yeah, you're not going to be a playoff team. So I really think, as fun as the last season was, this next season could be that much better. The Chicago Blackhawks. What is going on in Chicago? Now, Chris Kunitz, I like that signing. It's for dirt cheap. Why not bring him in? Brandon Manning. A lot of Flyers fans are dancing in the street that he is no longer a member of that organization, and Blackhawks fans seeing that are thinking, what the hell have we gotten ourselves into? At the very least, it's a 2-year deal. They need the defensive help, of course. So overall, I wouldn't feel too bad about that. They also signed Adam Boqvist, but of course, the big one. Cam Ward is a psychological assassin. How the hell... Like, is he a hypnotist? What is he? This master of mental gymnastics has somehow, and I made this comparison, the old saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist. Well, the greatest trick Cam Ward's ever pulled is making people think he's a good goaltender. How the hell do you get a $3 million contract from the Chicago Blackhawks? Bravo. Ladies and gentlemen, Cam Ward. Cam frickin' Ward. For Chicago, I mean, hey, whatever. It's a bit safer of an option in case Corey Crawford still isn't 100% or struggles again. It's a safer option than Anton Forsberg. It's a safer option, maybe, than Mrazek. I see why they did it, and I guess they had the most confidence in Cam Ward out of all of them. But should they have? I don't know. You better hope Corey Crawford stays healthy. But then again, maybe Cam Ward is a good goaltender. Maybe he'll prove us all wrong. The Colorado Avalanche have only made a few signings. They signed Matt Calvert, which they basically replaced Blake Como with Matt Calvert. I'm pretty sure they have similar cap hits. Blake Como's actually making just as much in Dallas now as he was making in Colorado, which is pretty funny. But I like the addition of Calvert to replace Como. I like the addition of Ian Cole as well. You could argue if their defensive depth was just a little bit better, they may have been able to put up a better fight against the Nashville Predators. So I like those two signings. Some people are worried about the 4.25 for Ian Cole. That I understand. And then the rest are minor signings. Joe Canada, just a backup goaltender. Sheldon Dries, who played with the Texas Stars. I'm intrigued to see if he maybe gets a shot on the fourth line. And then Scott Kosmachuk, a former Jets prospect who didn't have an NHL contract last season. So interesting to see him potentially work his way back. But nothing major. Well, you can't really say nothing major for the Avalanche. Calvert's a good signing. Ian Cole's a good signing. It adds to that defensive depth. The Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, admittedly, I almost wanted to wait another couple of days before putting this video out because of the whole Erik Karlsson situation. Now, the worst part about this video is there probably won't be timestamps. So, hey, listen, consider this a podcast at this point, a video podcast. Erik Karlsson is going to be traded. It's gonna happen. And Columbus is apparently one of the teams in the mix. So you can see why I kind of wanted to wait. My thoughts on the Erik Karlsson trade, or at least whether or not it's going to happen, which apparently it is, no one's surprised. My thoughts on the Ottawa Senators franchise in general, Sens fans, I am sorry. This hasn't changed since the draft. But back to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Broadhurst, minor signing. Tommy Cross, I hate to see him go. I love Tommy Cross. He's one of those players that you just like for no reason in particular. Dylan Simpson's a decent depth defenseman signing. Riley Nash. Sad to see him go. I obviously would have liked to have seen him stay, but you could argue 3 years at 2.75 is a little bit of a stretch for someone coming off of a career year, and you do have to be a little bit concerned about signings like that. But I wish him all the best, and then Adam Clendening's just another decent depth signing. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Columbus. Do they move Artemi Panarin? Are they that heavily involved in a potential Erik Karlsson trade? The Blue Jackets are another fun team to watch right now, just because you know that the desperation is there. And not to mention, again, Jesus, so much has happened. And if I forget to talk about anything, let me know. I'll either make another video if I forget a lot, or just talk about it in the comments. John Tortorella. Round of applause for John Tortorella, ladies and gentlemen. Holy shit, and the whole Jack Johnson situation. I enjoy a good circus. That's my comments. I enjoy a good circus. And John Tortorella is the best heat shield in the business. He just... I feel like 50%'s an act and 50% is he's just actually that boisterous. And regardless, it's at least entertaining. If he was my head coach, it probably wouldn't be entertaining. But, regardless. The Dallas Stars, as you can see, have made quite a few signings. Colton Point, NCAA goaltender, a very good NCAA goaltender. I'm intrigued to see if he makes it to the NHL within the next 3 to 5 years. Valeri Nichushkin returns on a pretty good deal, under $3 million. Never really kept up with him in the KHL because KHL scoring doesn't exactly translate to NHL success. Will he be better the second time around? Time will tell, but that is a good addition on paper, obviously, for the Stars, as are Michael Mersch and Eric Condra, good for the bottom six. Blake Como, good for the middle six. Roman Polak, as the Steve Dangle podcast says, maybe in the second half of the season, he'll be great. Maybe. Anton Khudobin as well, my thoughts. Again, he's getting paid a little bit less than Halak. I don't know. We'll see. I'll feel either better or worse about this signing, depending on how Yaroslav Halak does. Hanley's a minor signing. Ellie got some NHL playing time this past season. I don't know how many games he played, but I know he played. And L'Esperance. He's from Michigan, though. So, I don't know. Interesting name and another NCAA signing. So, overall for Dallas, I like what they're doing. The addition of Nichushkin, shoring up a little bit of that depth with Mersch, Condra, Como. Polak on defense doesn't help that much. It comes down again to the goaltending. I do like the tandem of Ben Bishop and Anton Khudobin. Anton Khudobin is obviously much more reliable than Akari Lehtinen, who, as of the time of recording, still hasn't signed. He is one of numerous players who still hasn't signed. But I like what they're doing. Obviously, though, just that sting of that really towards the postseason collapse, the end of season collapse, and missing the playoffs, the threat looming of Tyler Seguin's future, they need to have a good year. They need to make the playoffs. Will they? They have a shot. The Detroit Red Wings. Chris Terry, good minor league signing. Satari, good minor league signing. I don't know. Might even actually be the backup this year with Jared Coro gone. Wade Megan and Jake Chelios, good minor league signings, and of course they Jake Chelios. Jonathan Bernier though. So for Satari, he's the third goaltender. Might see some time though if Jimmy Howard can't stay healthy, or Jonathan Bernier for that matter. Bernier and Howard as your 1-2 punch. Detroit's one of those teams that you'd kind of bet on not making the playoffs, but you can't really say that their goaltending hasn't improved. With the addition of Bernier, 3 years at $3 million, a solid cap hit. Obviously, he had a bit of a career revival in Colorado. Whether or not that translates to Detroit, we will see. And then Thomas Vanek. I don't really get it. And there's also like a no movement clause to his deal where he wants to make sure he knows if and when he's being traded and to where. I don't get it, though. I guess he just likes Detroit. But you would have thought maybe go to a contender right out of the gates for less money as opposed to taking a $3 million contract and then potentially being stuck on a non-playoff team. I don't know. I'm not in that position where I can sit here, and I've done it plenty, where I can sit here and say, I would, if I'm Joe Thornton, I'll take minimum instead of $5 million, and that way my team can get better players. It's easy to say that you'd turn down a couple $1 million of generational wealth while you're sitting in a squeaky computer chair. So, I don't necessarily blame him, but again, I don't expect Detroit to be a playoff team. That said, they could surprise us. The Vegas Golden Knights made the Stanley Cup final. And I think that's the fun part heading into next year is we get to say, well, fuck it, anything can happen. Look at Vegas last year. So it's going to be fun. The Edmonton Oilers haven't done much. Still rumors looming of a potential Lucic trade, of them making moves, potentially a stupid move, which with Peter Chiarelli, you get about a 50-50 chance. Tobias Reeder's a good signing, though. $2 million? Yeah, but it's a 1-year deal. Kyle Brodziak's a good bottom six signing, and Kevin Gravel from the LA Kings, a good depth addition. But I don't know. I don't know what the Oilers are going to be. Again, another team that has some noticeable issues, and have they really addressed those issues this offseason so far? No, they haven't. And then there's also the issue of the goaltender that they just signed, and I can't remember his name. There he is, Mikko Koskinen. I was looking, I'm like, I can't see it. What was his name? Mikko Koskinen getting $2.5 million. It's like, how good's he gonna do? Can Cam Talbot keep it up and carry that team to the playoffs again? Who knows? another fun team to watch. Speaking of fun teams to watch, but not if you're in the Atlantic Division as well, a little bit concerned, the Florida Panthers re-signed Frank Petrano, good signing for them, re-signed Jared McCann, brought on Michael Hutchinson to replace Hari Sateri, Jacob McDonald and Paul Thompson, more depth signings. They haven't done much, but they also acquired Mike Hoffman. The Florida Panthers are in position to make the playoffs at the very least. Just another one of those teams. Like I said, there's so few I think that I could have on my list of not making the playoffs. In Florida, they should be right there. They almost made it this past season, and the a couple of depth signings that they made, the addition of Hoffman, I really like their chances. So it should be a good season coming up in Florida. But then again, we've said that about teams last season, and they were terrible. The LA Kings, obviously the two main signings, Sean Walker and Oscar Fantenberg. I do like the Sean Walker signing, actually, after looking up his NCAA numbers. Kovalchuk and Drew Doughty. They're going for it. We know that they're going for it. They have to go for it. They have an aging core. The numbers are out there, what this team's going to look like age-wise and cap hit-wise within the next 3 seasons. They're going for it. Do they have the roster to go for it? I don't know. How is Ilya Kovalchuk going to adapt to NHL ice? It's a different game. He's 35 years old. Is it going to be like a duck to water? He's going to be right back to it, putting up 30 goals. I don't know, but I'm intrigued to find out. Might have been more intrigued to find out if he was on a certain team. But yeah, I'm excited to see him back. And then, of course, the Drew Doughty signing, which has a massive ripple effect throughout the league. Of course, you had John Carlson re-sign with Washington. He got a pretty hefty contract off of a career year. And then Drew Doughty gets 8 by 11, which has had a massive effect on the Erik Karlsson deal, where they apparently offered him 8 by 10, I think was the last number that I had heard. That Doughty contract is huge, and there aren't too many players in the league making more money than Drew Doughty. What happens with a Karlsson, with some other players that are coming up contract-wise, I'm not sure. But speaking just to the LA Kings, Doughty, getting him under locks, not having to worry about that contract. You know he's here. You know that you're going for it. Bringing in Ilya Kovalchuk as well. The Kings got embarrassed, really, in the postseason last season. In the last postseason would have been the better way to phrase that. They're such an interesting team to watch. Can they actually compete for a cup? I can't wait to find out. The Minnesota Wild, a team that don't really see anybody talking about. They bought out Tyler Ennis and made some signings. Now, I don't hate the signings, but I think people are sleeping on Minnesota again, maybe rightfully so after another season of, you made it and then you didn't do anything. But I do like the signings that they made. Greg Pateryn for defensive depth. I'm surprised the Ambos got a contract, but good for him. Andrew Hammond, good for him. Still getting an NHL job. Eric Fair's a good signing for the bottom 6. Bartkowski's a good depth defenseman. JT Brown's good for the bottom 6, as is Matt Hendricks. And I really like them re-signing Nick Seeler. Cheap deal for 3 seasons. I really like Nick Seeler. I don't know. I feel like he could be, at the very least, a good third pairing guy for them moving forward. The biggest issues, of course, the health of Suter, and more importantly, Parise, the lack of production with Parise. Also phrased that strangely, but hey, we're quite far into this video, and it's all been one take so far, baby. No editing. You can see why I put the SeatGeek ad at the top of this. For the Minnesota Wild, it's been all right. Whether or not they have any more moves coming, I'm not entirely sure. The Montreal Canadiens. Now, of course, their big move before was the acquisition of Max Domi, the trade for Steve Mason and subsequent buyout. They signed Kotkaniemi. They signed Matthew Pekka, which I'm not surprised by. Chance for the bottom 6 this season. And you also have to think back to the players that they managed to get, Kirby Reichel and Renat Valiev, in the Plekanec trade. They're going to have a really good chance. There's going to be some new faces, of course. They let go of guys like Daniel Carr. I still don't know if I expect Montreal to be a playoff team, and if they are, how far can they go? But they've made some good signings. Like I said, Kotkaniemi, he'll get a chance to make the team immediately. Pekka, Chaput, and Kenny Agostino, you damn traitor. I'm kidding. Good depth signings, bringing back Plekanec, which was the biggest no-brainer. I mean, no, it's not like anyone's surprised that he went back. And then picking up Xavier Ouellet from the Detroit Red Wings after they bought him out. So a good job so far for the Habs, but they also still have a boatload of salary cap space that you have to wonder. It's like, when are you going to take advantage of that? Probably not anytime soon, even though you should, because you're paying Carey Price a boatload of money, and he represents your cup window, and you are not anywhere close right now. The Nashville Predators, you wouldn't really expect them to do much, and they haven't. Just depth signing after depth signing. Tenorti, Grimaldi, Brickley, Blackwell, Magwood, and Zach Rinaldo. Still getting work. Good for you, Zach. At least Nashville didn't give up a third-round pick for him, though. Am I right? Yeah, but good depth signings for the Preds. They didn't really have to do much anyway. The New Jersey Devils haven't done much either, which is kind of surprising. I mean, you know, the thought of would there be a Corey Schneider trade maybe? Are they going to go with Keith Kincaid? I still say if you can keep that tandem, fucking do it, because that's a good tandem. But in terms of any of the big signings, they haven't been there. They didn't re-sign Grabner. Maroon's still a free agent. You have Ramage, Greiba, and Curtis Gabriel, who are all depth signings. So, seems like something's stirring in New Jersey. And they also re-signed Eddie Lack. But, I don't know. Do the Devils do anything else moving forward? Or are they confident with the team that they currently have, and some of the prospects that they have, that might take the next step forward? Who knows? And speaking of who knows, the New York Islanders. Here's the thing. Right, because I obviously haven't talked about the Tavares signing yet, and we'll talk about it once we get to the Leafs. For the Islanders, can you have enough faith in Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz to get you through these rough waters? You had a tremendous draft, but you did just lose one of your better defensemen in Calvin DeHaan, and you just lost your franchise. I've said this before as well, to anybody burning or, just damage, whatever, like to anybody burning a Tavares jersey, your frustration is in the wrong place. John Tavares did what was best for John Tavares. And it's not his fault that what's best for John Tavares did not line up with what's best for the New York Islanders. That is the fault of poor ownership. That is the fault of poor management. And ultimately, the fault of poor ownership for allowing that poor management to stay in place. It has been a habit of theirs since at least 1996, and really before then. You can't blame Mike Milbury for the entire downfall. It's been a problem for a very long time. As far as the moves they've made, Laredo's a depth signing. Leo Komarov, 4-year deal at $3 million. I like Leo Komarov. He's still a usable player. 4 years. Valtteri Filppula gets 1, and that's a little bit better. But you can look at the numbers for Komarov and Filppula, and, Thomas Hickey, though, bringing him back. I like that on face value. 4 years at 2.5. But admittedly, when I don't have like the statistical knowledge of Thomas Hickey's game to back that up. I just say, Thomas Hickey, he's an okay defenseman. He might be shit. I don't know. Mike Sisso's a depth signing. Tom Kuhnhackl, another one of those types where if you look at the numbers with him and Filppula, it's like, okay. And then Robin Lehner. You obviously lose Halak, so your tandem this season is looking like it's going to be Lehner and Greiss, which on paper isn't terrible. If they play to their potential, it's actually going to be pretty good. But Robin Lehner, that kind of speaks to where his value is right now. 1 year at $1.5 million. It's not that high, and if anything, I'm kind of surprised he didn't have to jump over to the K, as we might have to see guys like Andrei Pavlik too. I don't know. I can't really say anything that others haven't said about the New York Islanders. It's not the most depressing story in the NHL. That belongs to a certain other fan base. You know who you are. But it's still just, where does this team go? They're in that middle ground right now where you're not really a playoff contender. You might sneak in through a wild card spot, but you're probably not going to do any real damage. You have Matt Barzal. You're in a decent enough spot where if you make the right moves going forward, you can recover from this. Can Lou Lamoriello make those correct moves? We shall see. And you have to wonder what Barry Trotz thinks right now at this point, and whether or not he should have just stayed in Seattle, or waited, stayed in Seattle. He has a home in Seattle. Go to Seattle, stay there, wait for the franchise to be announced, and then sign with the Sea Cattle. Well, we're just going to call them the Seattle Sea Cattle until proven otherwise. The Islanders are obviously a very weird situation. The New York Rangers really haven't done much. They re-signed Vladimir Mestikov, which is good. They brought in Freddie Claesson for cheap, which I'm still shocked that the Sens let go of him. That is a great cheap signing for them. And Stephen Fogarty will be a member of Hartford next season. The Rangers are looking good. Are they a playoff team this year? Maybe, maybe not. Another team that might be able to sneak in under the radar. But in terms of their rebuild, I mean, it was more of a retooling, really. They're going to be able to recover relatively quickly. And this is what I'm talking about with the Islanders. The Rangers lost some pieces. Granted, the difference is they got something back for those pieces, but you still had to make sure that you got something back. Despite a somewhat controversial draft that a lot of fans apparently didn't agree with, I thought they did well. The Rangers are in a good spot. Probably a better spot than the Islanders, just on paper and in general. But the Islanders can recover, and the Rangers should be, I mean, if they're not back in the playoffs this year, it could happen very soon. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? No disrespect to Paul Carey. I've seen him play quite a few times. Really good AHL player. No disrespect to Mike McKenna, former Portland Pirates goaltender. Got to see him play quite a bit as well. Sens fans, it's going to get worse. You know this. It's just whether or not you want to say it's going to get worse before it gets better. You don't quite know if it's going to get better, do you? I don't think any of us do. And if it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. The Philadelphia Flyers have only made one move, but it was a big one. That being bringing back James Van Riemsdyk. Yes, they won the Schenn for Van Riemsdyk trade, even though, whatever. I like the JVR signing, kind of. I mean, he's really good at one thing. Is it worth signing someone for 5x7 to be really good at one thing? In some cases, yes. Will that be the case with JVR here? Nah. They still need to figure things out defensively. Some guys haven't progressed the way they wanted to. Of course, you lost Manning. Radko Gudas is Radko Gudas. Whether or not they end up trading Wayne Simmons for some defensive help now, we shall see. But the Flyers, again, the goal, of course, is playoffs at the very least. And if that goaltending can just sort itself out, you might get there. But Flyers are a real interesting team to watch because you know that they're not done yet. At least you would think that they're not going to be done yet. So it's kind of tough to comment. The Pittsburgh Penguins, as it turns out, the Jack Johnson rumor was true. However, the salary cap hit was a lot lower than what was expected. 5 years at $325, still a little bit of a risk. But if Jack Johnson can refine his game, that's an okay deal. That's a pretty big if, though. Jack Johnson is one of the more mysterious cases in the NHL right now, where that contract is either going to be an albatross or it's going to look good. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground there. It's just whether or not he can repair himself on and off the ice to make this happen. He goes to a team, apparently really good friends with Crosby. He's 31 years old. I mean, this is it. This is it. This is his time to prove himself. Jimmy Hayes gets a cheap contract as well. Stephon Elliott, John Muse, Zach Trotman as well, so a couple of former Bruins there. And Matt Cullen goes back to Pittsburgh for dirt cheap. So I kind of like what the Penguins have done. Of course, you lose Kuhn Hackl, you trade Sherry and Hunwick. You bring in some guys who can potentially replace them, of course. They're the Pittsburgh Penguins. I feel like they're really going to benefit from that extra time off. Big question heading into next year, the health of someone like Chris Letang and whether or not Matt Murray can really kind of prove that he is one of the elite goaltenders moving forward. You have a lot of people calling fluke because they lost to Washington. Not necessarily. But they're going to be an interesting team to watch. Obviously, myself, I'm not exactly hoping for more success for them, but it could happen. The San Jose Sharks, all they've done is re-sign, but hey, what re-signings they are after missing out on John Tavares. Re-signing Logan Couture, 8x8. How do Sharks fans feel about that? I like Logan Couture. Great player. 8x8? Joe Thornton gets a 1-year, $5 million deal. Good on him to take a $3 million pay cut. And Tomas Hertl was perhaps one of the more interesting ones. 4 years at 5.625. You can look at the point totals and kind of scratch your head a little bit. They're really banking on a breakout couple of seasons here from him. And showing that faith in him, giving him that money deal. Sometimes it works, sometimes it buries you. So we'll see what happens there with the Sharks. Looking relatively the same, though, but then obviously the addition of someone like an Evander Kane, and of course they were involved in the Mike Hoffman situation as well. You would still expect the Sharks to be a playoff team, if not close to a contender. They flew under the radar last year. I think rightfully so. People started to say, okay, well, Marlowe's gone. They lost in the Cup final. They're going to take a little bit of a step back. They were still a good team. They just ran into the powerhouse known as the Vegas Golden Knights, which is still incredibly weird to say. St. Louis Blues, on top of the Ryan O'Reilly signing, Wotherspoon's a good depth guy. Chad Johnson as your backup to replace Carter Hutton, I think's great. I really like Chad Johnson. I wouldn't have minded seeing him come back to Boston, to be honest. Brian Flynn, good depth guy. Joey LaLeggia, good depth guy. I know him more from the Bakersfield Condors, the Edmonton's farm system. Mackenzie McEachern was signed as well. Robbie Fabry signs for dirt cheap as an RFA. Under $1 million for 1 year. Definitely, like that's a warning sign right there where it's like, okay, you missed the entire season due to injury. Let's see what you have first. Let's not do anything crazy. And that's the right way to do it. And thankfully for the Blues, they were able to get that deal done in that way, rather than Fabry just being like, prior to last season, I was pretty good. So $3 million, please. My leg might be made out of glued together toothpicks and paper mache, but I'm not going to tell you that for sure. I just hooked the mic. That was tremendous. The two big signings here, David Perron, who loves the city of St. Louis like no other. 4 years, $4 million. Yeah, that might be a little bit more than I'd want to see my team personally pay for David Perron, but obviously he had a bit of a resurgence in Vegas. And then Tyler Bozak, 3 years, $5 million. These are the prices that you have to pay in the free agent market. $9 million tied between David Perron and Tyler Bozak. This could either be tremendous for them, and of course center depth-wise, the Blues look great after the O'Reilly trade. This could either work out tremendously for them, or it could be quite bad. And with the St. Louis Blues, you never quite know what the hell you're going to get. So who knows? That'll be a fun circus to watch. The Tampa Bay Lightning re-signing Ryan McDonagh. Some people were surprised that they went the full 7. I'm not really. It does pretty much take them out of the Erik Karlsson running, which, I don't think they ever believed they were in to begin with. So, yeah, of course, they were rumored about Tavares somehow, some way. But good signing. Ryan McDonagh's a great defenseman. Under $7 million, pretty damn good considering the market right now. Kevin Lynch, Cameron Gounson, those two are more depth signings. Slater Cuckoo could still compete for the third pairing spot. There are rumors of him being traded to Boston. Obviously don't see that happening now. But, decent signings there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're still the Lightning, and they're still Cup favorites heading into next season. I don't really see how you could believe otherwise. I'm going to go in reverse order on this one. Justin Hall, good signing. Good for him. What was he, a former first-round pick of the Blackhawks? Long road to get where he's gotten, but congrats to him. He'll have a chance to make that third pairing for the Leafs next year. Adam Cracknell, Josh Joris, good depth signings. Both have a chance at the fourth line, I'd say. Marty Marincin, great season for the Marlies. Good depth for them to have. Jordan Subban for the memes. Good depth for them to have. I'm very surprised, though. Jordan Subban was one of numerous players, and I talked about this on Twitter, where teams that had recently acquired players, because LA had just acquired Jordan Subban from Vancouver in the past season, they just let him go. And there were a lot of examples of that. Brandon Davidson was a good one, who I don't even think is signed yet, where the Islanders traded for him and just let him go. So many examples of that. It was really weird. And I'll talk about John Tavares. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Unless I sit here and just verbally blow every Leafs fan about, oh, you're the Cup favorite now. People are going to be like, oh, you biased Bruins fan. It's John frickin' Tavares. He's one of the best players in the league, going to a top, last year a top 6 team in the league. Offensively, you lose Bozak, you lose JVR. Who really cares when you have certain replacements that can now get into the lineup full time? You also have John Tavares coming in. Tavares, Matthews, Kadri, not many teams can compete with that. I wouldn't even say that Pittsburgh can compete with it. I mean, it depends on who their third-line center is, really. And, of course, they let go of Riley Sheahan, another good example of a move like that. The Leafs still have some issues, obviously. They need to find out, backup goaltender. Defensively, you still have some question marks, and you might have to rely on a little bit more youth. But the Leafs are the real deal. I said they were the real deal last season, heading into last season, and they're the real deal heading into this season. Is this Tavares signing enough on its own to make them the Stanley Cup champions elect for this next season? Time will tell. The best team on paper doesn't always win. Hello, Washington Capitals. Sometimes it's better to not have all that hype and expectation. Obviously, the most recent loss to the Bruins. Yeah, I'm going to bring that up for as long as I can because, the Leafs might win next year, in which case, I talk about Steve Dangle all the time, man. I've been watching Steve Dangle for 8 years. Hell, there is an episode of the Steve Dangle podcast from very early on where they gave away hockey cards. I have hockey cards from the Steve Dangle podcast. I have a soft spot for the Leafs, is my point. But I feel like if you speak negatively to this about, well, there's still question marks. Well, what do you do with the cap? Then Leafs fans, some of them at least, just hound you about it. The Leafs are the real deal. Whether or not they can make that leap and find themselves in the Stanley Cup final, time will tell. That's really all you can say. The Vancouver Canucks, not going to be a playoff team. We'll start off with that. I like the Tim Schaller signing. Get a little bit more than he would have elsewhere. So good for him, first of all. The Roussel signing, 4x3. Whew. Interesting. The Jay Beagle signing, 4x3. Interesting. Re-signing Sven Berchke, 3x3.366. Okay. And Aaron Archibald, good depth signing, might be a fourth liner for them. I mean, obviously you can tell by these kind of signings, no major impact players coming into the team. They're still in that rebuilding phase. So, Vancouver, you're not going to be a playoff team next year. Guys like Berchke, of course, bringing him back. Guys like Beagle and Roussel and Schaller should be able to do some business for you in the bottom six. But that doesn't, bring your team up. You lost the Sedins. Louis Eriksson, if he could stay healthy, might help, but that's probably not going to happen. There's still, we're still a little bit of time away. I don't really think that's controversial. The Vegas Golden Knights. Jimmy Olegny, good depth signing. Daniel Carr, potentially good bottom six signing. Zachary Fucale. I know he's 23, but holy shit, could you imagine if he pans out? Fucale and Malcolm Subban on the same team, by the way. That's something. Alex Gallant, good depth signing. Nick Holden leaves Boston, goes to Vegas for 2 years, $2.2 million per. Good signing for them. Curtis McKenzie, good depth signing that they picked up from Dallas. They brought back Legacy or Lagasse. And then, really the big one there, but Ryan Reeves is also one of the bigger deals. Brandon Peary as well, bringing him back for cheap. The two big deals here, Ryan Reeves and Paul Stastny. Ryan Reeves getting just under a little bit under $3 million over 2 years. He must be a hell of a locker room guy because that is an overpayment. But if any team can afford it, it's the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, losing guys, like David Perron and James Neal. You have some money to spend, and you spend some of it by stealing Paul Stastny away from the Winnipeg Jets. So that's a good move on your part. Again, the Vegas Golden Knights have a vendetta against the Winnipeg Jets. They stopped the Jets. God, who did they stop them from picking up? It was the deal where they just randomly took somebody for no fucking reason to stop them from going to Winnipeg. I don't remember. You know who I'm talking about, though. Similar situation here where it's like, oh, Stastny, he might re-sign with Winnipeg? Nope. Yoink. Thank you very much. 3 years, 6.5. Good contract for them. Obviously, Vegas is going to be interesting to watch. What are they going to be next season? I think that's the biggest question. Even more so than what are the Leafs going to do? What are the Vegas Golden Knights going to look like? Are they going to be more of what we expected them to be? Are they going to be a playoff team? I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. A very interesting team to watch. The Washington Capitals, Jesus, what do you really have to say here? It started on the 25th, re-signing John Carlson, 8x8's a lot. especially to him coming off of a career year. But the moves that they had made, getting rid of Orpik to make this happen. Devontae Smith-Pelly stays for 1x1, dirt cheap, forgoes getting at least $2.5 million, I'd say minimum. Someone would have given him that deal, even though the regular season wasn't that good. He stays in Washington. Good for him. Kempney, 4 years is a little bit rough. 2.5 also seems a little bit rough. I don't know, Caps fans, how do you feel about that? Because on paper, to me, that's a rough contract, but maybe not. Megna, good depth signing. Scarbosa, same thing. Nick Dowd, same thing. Could be a good fourth liner for them. They re-sign Travis Boyd and Riley Barber, and they also bring in Fehervari, who I've never been able to pronounce his name correctly. I know I mispronounced it. But Washington, hell of an offseason. Being able to retain the players that they have, I didn't think they'd be able to pull it off, and they have. So congrats to them. And we reach the end of the road. The Winnipeg Jets, who of course have not had the greatest time. I'm missing out on Stastny. They bring back Joe Morrow for cheap. I may have missed some of the signings too before July 1st, and if I did, and again, if you want me to comment on anything about that, just let me know. But from there, Cam Schilling, depth. Seth Griffith, depth. Dennis Everberg coming back over from the KHL. Interesting one. Brossoit as, I would say, your third goalie. Is he going to be the backup? Is Comrie going to play down in Manitoba? I'm intrigued to see that situation. And Skylar McKenzie being brought in, I believe, from the Portland Winterhawks. Yeah. So overall, not really too much you can say about Winnipeg, I suppose. The big news for them, of course, is just missing out on bringing back someone like a Paul Stastny. With that, I can't think of anything I forgot to talk about. I'm sure there is some stuff. We are back on track. I'm going to try to keep up to date with everything. Of course, in the next week. After that, the news will just kind of die down. But, I'll continue to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. That's what Tougie's takes are. And I love you if you've made it this far into the video. Thank you for watching the Tougie's Take Free Agent Frenzy podcast. You know what you can do to support the video and the channel and all that fun stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, comment, tell a friend, tell your mom. I heard she's a nice lady. She might not be, and in which case, again, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell a cousin who likes hockey. Or fat guys that wear glasses. In which case, to each their own, really. I think we're done here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time, hopefully.